Mike for coming today and just talking with us about your not new, but almost a year and a half. How long have you been with UCSD?
Actually, Monday will be 2 years. Yeah, I know. Time flies when you're doing work.
Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And you're still here.
I'm still here, and I'm just more tan.
You are, and you're happier because you're in the
Much
sun
happier.
more with
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah, family's happy. I'm happy.
Family's happy. Everyone's, and you're healthier. All right. Well, just a few questions. I just want to kind of pick your brain because everybody's moving around. People are wanting to know how it's working and how to make it work when you're a new VP of Revenue Cycle over at a big academic facility like you have. How did you immediately identify your priorities when you first got there? What were kind of your strategy? Because you have to win people over, you have to understand the landscape, but kind of walk us through or talk us through how you came about your priorities.
So I think in the more, high level, qualitative and quantitative at the same time. So access to data, reports, projects that are in motion, what's going on. Qualitative in the way that I literally just sat down with all the leaders and assistant directors and up. I just wanted to get to know them. I did a little bit of a social experiment where I just asked them to tell me about themselves. And 90% of what we talked about were work issues, but I really just wanted to hear out their personalities, get to know them. But through those efforts and that discovery, I was able to take kind of the data understanding of where KPIs are and we get better. But then when I had the qualitative discussions, I was understanding a little bit more of maybe things that you don't see on a spreadsheet that were impacting them. So I think I was able to take both, kind of balance them out. The other part that I did was the initial responses I got were one thing. Let's be honest, I was a new leader, new executive coming in. So a lot of folks might have been telling me things that were a little bit more warm and fuzzy, where I want to hear the raw, blunt truth of what's happening. So I also waited a little while and then had those same conversations a few weeks, couple months later. And the answers didn't change drastically, but it did help me level set. Maybe that is an issue, but that day, maybe you were saying it a little bit more passionately because of something that happened versus something that's a little bit more systemic that's been with you for a while. So I'd say after about 3 months, 4 months, I really felt like I had my sea legs and I knew where our opportunities were and started realigning priorities and our strategy sessions a bit. So
that's great that you actually prioritize the relationship aspect initially, as opposed to just coming in with your own agenda and just being like, this is what we're going to do, as opposed to bringing them in and get the buy-in from your team, which I think
a little bit with my military background, you want to make sure you and your unit are aligned. And although the rest of my leadership team did not sign up to go through basic, we had to do kind of trial by fire and get to know each other very quickly. So yeah, there was a lot of benefits to that.
Did they know you had a military? Did anyone know
Yeah.
prior? I was going to say, I wonder if they would have picked that out initially.
I think the haircut gave it away.
Yeah,
immediately,
that's true. And actually, the military base is not that far from San Diego, so it's it works. It works for. I'm sure you felt like you were at home. So as you got to know the different leaders, as they began to kind of trust your leadership and your kind of vision, talk us through kind of when you identify the areas and issues that need to be done, what kind of tactics do you put in motion? Are you meeting with the leaders on a regular basis? Are you offering up different solutions? Are you showing them the data and working with them on different initiatives? Kind of talk us through like your I wouldn't say weekly, but maybe your monthly interactions with those folks and how you moved them from listening to them, building up the trust, having them understand your leadership vision. How do you move them to the next step?
So it's been a bit of a hybrid approach. I don't like to meet just to meet, but we also understand the value in it. So we probably have one-on-ones more frequently than most people. I meet with my leaders at least every 2 weeks, one-on-one. Every day we meet for 30 minutes for a department escalation strategy or just a huddle. And then we meet weekly also for our metric review as a large management team, and then also as a director and up team. And a lot of that might sound like overlap or duplicative, but it is not, because the audience differs and the input and intent of the meeting is different. For example, meeting with our one-on-ones, a little bit more of that is I'm hearing what's really going on and maybe what doesn't fit in an email that's really causing some issues. The leadership meetings is a little bit more of a collaborative. What can we work together on? I have these accounts. This is a problem. So we get a lot of resolution, I think, and agreement at the director level. The metric meeting with management, that one I think duplicates two processes. They get to see the management and above get to see the directors and myself interact and how we operate. So I think they take that as a learning. And then over time, when we talk about subjects, they're communicating in a similar manner. And what that shows me is, one, not only do they have an understanding of the topic and the issue, they're speaking to it accurately, they're asking for resources or escalating, but also we're not spending time talking with so much noise. And in today's world, we always joke back and forth how fast we are. And I'm sorry I didn't respond to your text in 3 days. It's cutting out a lot of the noise that doesn't need to be there. So it's effective communication. We review the metrics daily, weekly at the latest. And then we make sure that communication, that message is all the way from our supervisor manager level. And then I take that to the executive level to communicate. So when any one of us talks about a metric, an item, a project, something that's slipping, we're all very much in lockstep.
Bottom up, top down.
At the same time.
At the same time.
Some of it on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's great. Now, did you have to reorganize any of your departments? Did you have to do any kind of revamping? And how did you delicately or how did that work for you when you came in and had to look at some issue, which everybody, obviously, because things are done a certain way for a certain amount of time. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Luckily, University of California, especially at San Diego, is very well organized. A lot of great tools for communication, for organization of files. So I didn't have to do a lot of updating of changes there. I am also the, I guess, more traditional thinking of if it's not broke, I don't want to fix it or touch it. I would say also, though, to caveat, personally, I'm not one to come in that wants to rip everything up, because once again, I want to hear people out and see what the issues are, but you also need to allow time so that if you do make changes or tweaks, if it's not happening within a week or two, that doesn't mean you rip the cord on it. Make sure it goes through a month or a seasonal cycle, whatever that timeline is. So I actually haven't had to change much my first year. I will say, though, being that it is the end of June and our fiscal year starts next week, there will be some changes, but honestly, no surprises. I meet with my leadership team. We have friend relationships. We text each other on the weekends, what our kids are doing and our families. So the changes that I am implementing is not because I want to, not because it's just my vision. It's what makes sense for them. And it also happens to fit into the vision as well. So we're really doing a good job of communicating. And then the changes that are occurring are, I don't like surprises. Most people, outside of maybe birthday parties, they don't want them. And I try to make sure any decision we do is a partnership with that leader.
So you're bringing them along through the process.
100%.
So it's not really a reorg. It's just a process kind of review and then bringing everybody into that fold as you're reviewing the process and the improvements that need to be made.
That and I'm sure we'll talk about it too, but we're in a big, huge growth mode now. And I think that that's helped a little bit with the discussions of the changes. We were a 2-hospital system. We will be 4 soon. We can't double our size and not make some meaningful changes. So that's helped the narrative as well.
And do you have to rebrand anything? Do you have to do anything when you're bringing in? Because I know you just acquired 2. Is it 2 hospitals?
As of today, 1. The second one is very close.
Okay. So 1 with almost a 2 complete.
Yeah, 1.4.
And obviously that brings cultural.
Yeah.
You've got some cultural differences. So you're almost starting over with the process as each and every acquisition comes into the fold. So you have to be really steeped in your identity and you've got to keep, I don't want to say evangelizing, but kind of evangelizing that with the rest of the folks as they come on. And I know there are challenges there, but kind of talk, because everyone's acquiring, kind of talk through acquisition versus being new within an organization and kind of different challenges that you're seeing. And how far are you into the first acquisition?
That's fully completed, and we are now live finally brought them on our shared Epic instance. So our communication and our work together is much better. It's not that it was bad, but a lot of when you come up in revenue and finance, you're all about efficiencies. So when you see a workflow that should be done in 5 minutes and it takes 10, it definitely keeps me up at night. But that was a known risk and issue with the first part of the acquisition, that we'd be on different EMRs. So that was painful though, because you always want to be operating as best you can, but you had to deal with that a little bit. However, being in the trenches, going through the acquisition and these manual workflows, that was a chance for, I'm going to use a lot of military analogies, but our troops were in the same foxhole. So the sharing of culture was not as much of a topic as it needed to be, because it really was, this is how we do things, this is how I do things. And we were mutually learning from each other. And then when we came up for presenting those learnings or those accomplishments, those were joint efforts, joint meetings, joint presentations. So to be honest with you, we talked about the culture piece, but it happened
like more
almost organically. Yeah. And
it sounds like it.
Yeah, if anything, we had to rebrand. I would say the signage was probably the most dramatic part of the change. Otherwise, what was called Alvarado, that's now East Campus, welcomed us with open arms. We welcomed them. And pretty much from day one, if we were having a leadership meeting, it was a we, it wasn't us or them. And since day one, we've been on the same page. The next acquisition, which I hope we finalize soon, I don't see it being much different at all, because they're, whatever the institution's good at, they're good at. We don't want to mess with that. We do want to come together and figure out how we can both be better. And so we're hoping that playbook plays forward with our next acquisition or more.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
I know, it's crazy. Oh my gosh, which is great. I mean, obviously, when you have a strong system and you have others that are, you can leverage a lot with a larger group. And we all know payers are the bane of our existence. So I see a lot of benefits, because I'm an advocate for the hospital. I'm here. I'm not against payers, but I see what is going on in the market, and you guys are always at the mercy of the payers. And I think with this shift in bringing on more folks and being able to leverage that, I think it's a necessity. It's not even nice to have, that you're looking to make. It's a necessity in order for you guys to function in this
100%.
in this day and age with our payers. So 2 years, this is 90 days. Obviously, you're 2 years in. What has been your biggest success? Like, what do you, looking back over the last 2 years, coming into a new market? This is a whole new, Southern California, Chicago, very different markets. What did you in your mind want to be the success and expectation wise, and what, looking back on 2 years, do you feel like was the success?
Oh, that's a great question. I think what I would attribute to my biggest success is not a metric. I have a level of cohesiveness with my leadership team that, although the acquisitions and some of the manual projects and strategies we had to do that hurt the way that we normally operate with efficiencies and optimization, the acquisition, I think, just brought to light and showed me how close we were, how similar we were aligned, not necessarily in thinking, but there were never questions about what the mission was, what the goal was, the level of acceptance of either failure or error to try new things out. Very little of our time when we met was talking about what's the way I want to handle or the right way to do this. It's almost like we already knew that. So if anything, there was only so many conversations with me to just double check or confirm things. And that, I think, was a big success, because over the first year and a half, 2 years, we got to know each other well. We built trust. And through trial and error, we saw how we would operate, how to pick each other up. I also learned how to help remove barriers from my team in a very big system that's not as easy to do. And so that was a big difference, changing. But I think that's my biggest success, is seeing the team operate, where for the most part now, they operate so smoothly. I'm usually just reviewing and approving things. Or every so often I'll say, hey, what's happening here? And they have a level of understanding of what I'm looking for when I ask that, because they know I've got to take that message, to the doctor, or to my boss, or whatever that is. So that was the biggest success. The biggest change, probably California, I think, is an unofficial title of land of the laws or litigation land. There's just a lot of rules and regulations and labor agreements and just things that you have versions of it in Illinois, but not to the level you do in California. So I don't want to say nothing big, surprisingly new. Just
But
a lot
learning,
of the things.
a lot of learning
A lot of learning,
work.
but like on steroids of some of the
Yes.
items. So
Yeah.
but a lot of, like you said, a lot of resources, a lot of folks that have been there for a while. So it was about as soft of a landing as I could ever get, which I'm grateful for.
Well, good. Well, I appreciate this time. I appreciate. We'll check back in the next 2 years and see where we're at with you guys. But it was great talking with you. So
Sounds
thank
great,
you.
Beth. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.